Thank you very much. Taoiseach, I stand before you today a proud veteran of the Irish Defence Forces. Taoiseach, every officer, NCO and service person of the Defence Forces, serving and retired, I have engaged with since the publication of the report, has expressed a welcome for the statutory inquiry and for any Garda investigation of wrongdoing in the Defence Forces. All expressed strongly that any wrongdoing should face the full rigours of the law. Taoiseach, page 10 of the IRG report clearly states that the IRGDF did not partake in fact-finding with any individual participant. Yet you accepted the findings of the report unequivocally as fact and expressed the view that you were going to deliver cultural change in the Defence Forces. I hope you read more than the executive summary and did a detailed analysis of the appendices as well. If you had, you may not be so certain of the findings and your condemnation of the Defence Forces. You have described the findings as outlined in the report as very troubling, and you used the word disgusting to describe them. Findings like overt preference of masculine culture, overemphasis of physical fitness, misogynist, little tolerance for women. Where did these findings come from? Where is the basis of fact in this report? The judge listened to unacceptable lived experience of individuals, but none of these lived experiences were examined or interrogated to establish fact. Yet they are presented as fact. The judge made sweeping generalisations using the extreme and unproven lived experience to cast grave allegations against the entire Defence Forces. Where is the fact in the report? Where is the evidence to support the findings? The report was thrown a cloud over the members, past and present, where the judge simply became judge, jury and executioner. The report would not stand the test of any academic assessment, and the report methodology used would not support any findings. The findings are not fact, but generalisations. The proud history of the most loyal citizens of the state have been undermined by generalisations and not fact. All jumped on the bandwagon. For what reason? Maybe because they knew the Defence Forces cannot publicly comment to defend themselves, or are unable to speak openly to the press. Now we have a Defence Forces unable to defend themselves and unable to defend Ireland. Taoiseach, can I ask you, did the Department of Defence advise you that the report was built on generalisations and point out the damage that could be caused to the Defence Forces by this opinionated report? It clearly looks as if not. Even the Department of Defence, who speak publicly, are unwilling to defend the Defence Forces. Let's talk about resistance to change in the Defence Forces. How many reorganisations have governments imposed on the Defence Forces in the last 20 years? Reorganisations driven by budgetary concerns and often against the advice of the military. Every reorganisation was delivered effectively with no resistance once government decision was made. Taoiseach, government employed a third Assistant Secretary-General in 2017 for the Department of Defence. The post was Assistant General Secretary capability. This role, we were told, was to deliver HR change in the Defence Forces. How many HR initiatives did the person appointed bring forward? Can anyone name one that the Defence Forces refused to implement? In fact, I would question if any were brought forward at all. Yet the judge rubbished the HR policies. Is that your department's fault, or is it the fault of the Defence Forces? Look at the Independent Monitoring Group, which was established in 2001, following my colleague Senator Clonan's report. Is it not the case that every one of this group's findings were implemented by the Defence Forces? Where does the judge see resistance to change? The recent intervention in the media by the first Ombudsman for the Defence Forces, Barrister Pauline Marion Quinn, shows the success of the Independent Monitoring Group within the Defence Forces as best in class. The Independent Monitoring Group was shut down by your department in 2014 when it was doing an excellent job. Why? Taoiseach, you as Minister for Defence put our Defence Force in harm's way every day. It's part of your job. The report stated too much emphasis on physical fitness. The Defence Forces faces potential life-threatening situations every day. There may be requirements to use lethal force to protect themselves, or indeed refugees in camps in Africa, or Irish citizens being evacuated from Sudan. Soldiers need to be fit, strong and resilient, and I make no apology, and no one should. ever make an apology for this. The Defence Force training reflects these realities. Reference is made to the fact that the Defence Forces does not place an overemphasis on education. Yet the truth is the Defence Forces is probably the only organisation in the state, certainly the first, to recognise the benefits of lifelong learning and accreditation. The level of primary and secondary degrees, qualified soldiers, NCOs and officers is nothing short of impressive, something often adverted to by those military I meet overseas. Taoiseach, these are easily ascertained facts. Regarding the culture in the Defence Forces, there is no doubt that among HR professionals who are subject matter experts in organisational culture and how you assess organisational cultures, findings in this report of such extreme view could not possibly be arrived at from any true representative culture independent survey. I question, was there an empirical survey carried out, as there is zero evidence that one was conducted. The report took input that was unquestioned and untested from a very small representative sample of those who alleged rape, sexual harassment, or who felt they were unfairly treated, and based the report analysis on that. How did you or the department not recognise the shortcomings in the report before accepting its totality and condemning the Defence Forces? The same position exists in Defence Force leadership. The judge did not in any way reflect the excellent comprehensive leadership training in the Defence Forces. Suggestion that the leadership is dishonest and untruthful is simply a scurrilous comment and has no basis in fact. How can any credible report describe officers and NCOs as akin to characters in a Marvel film? Where's the credibility and unreasonable ramblings? The report refers to elitism. You attended the recent commissioning at Collins Barracks. The young men and women commissioned were totally representative of Irish society. A number were sons and daughters of enlisted personnel. From the biographies I read on that day, none were the product of the private colleges or the elite schools in this country. These are the future of the Defence Forces, and I see nothing elite about them. Taoiseach, you must move quickly to set up the statutory inquiry, and I'm glad you've confirmed that today. It must run in parallel with the Garda inquiry. Together with the Chief of Staff, Lieutenant General Sean Clancy, and Secretary General Jackie McCrum, we must ensure that the bullies and those involved in inappropriate sexual behaviour are rooted out and face the law. Finally, as it's clear that the Department of Defence itself has many questions to answer, I believe the independent oversight body must be totally independent of those serving in the Defence Forces and the Department of Defence, reporting only to you. Clearly, it would be wrong to include the Secretary-General of the Department of Defence, albeit she's relatively new in the job, as this post gives out the wrong signal to those who are serving and those that are retired. I compliment you for the work you're about to do. I am deeply, deeply hurt, like so many of my colleagues who served, that we have all been tarred with the one brush. A simple sentence would have sufficed for the report, saying that I found prima facie evidence that would require a statutory inquiry. Instead of that, we have a report that has tarred the whole goddamn lot of us as sexual predators and bullies. I'm proud of the service I give to my country, as are the thousands of men and women who contact me. Hundreds of them have contacted me in recent days. Deeply, deeply hurt by this report. Thank you, Taoiseach.